In our lesson today, we're going to start to solve equations that require more than two steps, which we call multi-step equations. In the box at the top, it's important to remember that when solving an equation, the goal is to isolate the variable. We always need to get the variable alone so that we can figure out its value. If an equation contains multiple steps, then you should try to create a two-step equation. Okay, we spent the last two classes looking at how to solve two-step equations. So if an equation contains multiple steps, try to create a two-step equation. In our first example, the equation says 3x plus 20 plus x equals 84. Okay, this is going to require multiple steps to get the value of the variable. And notice that we actually have two variable terms. We have the 3x and we also have the 1x on the same side of the equal sign. Since I do have similar terms on the same side of the equal sign, the first thing I'm going to do is rearrange my terms so that I can get my variable terms together. So this is going to be the same as 3x plus 1x plus 20 equals 84. And now I can actually combine my 3x and my 1x, my two variable terms together. 3x plus 1x is going to be equal to 4x. Then bring down the plus 20 equals 84. And this right here now is a two-step equation. So what we're going to do now is try to isolate the variable term 4x. Okay, on the same side as 4x is that positive 20. So we're going to go ahead and subtract 20 on the left, which means I have to subtract 20 on the right. Bring your equal sign straight down. On the left, when you do 20 minus 20, you get 0. So that means that 4x is the only thing that's still on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side, 84 minus 20 is 64. So 4x is equal to 64. Now we want to get the value of just one variable. Since 4x's equals 64, to get the value of 1x, I'm going to have to divide 4x by 4. And if I do it to the left side, I'm going to have to divide the right side by 4 as well. Again, bring the equal sign straight down. 4x divided by 4 on the left leaves us with 1x. And on the right, 64 divided by 4 is equal to 16. And so we have found out the value of the variable, x equals 16. Just to make sure, though, we're going to go ahead and do our check. The first part of the check is to rewrite the original problem, which said 3x plus 20 plus x equals 84. Okay, make sure that you always use the original equation in your check. Now, since we think x is 16, we're going to replace both of the x's with 16. So this is going to say 3 times 16 plus 20 plus 16 equals 84. And now follow your order of operations. I have to multiply first. 3 times 16 is 48, plus 20 plus 16 equals 84. And now we'll go ahead and do our addition. 48 plus 20 is 68. And then when you add 68 with 16, you do get 84. So 84 equals 84. That checks. And I know that x has a value of 16. In our second example, we see that it says negative 10 plus 5y plus 30 equals 150. This, again, is not a two-step equation, so we're going to try to create a two-step equation out of it. Notice on the left-hand side that we actually have two constant terms. So the first thing I'm going to do is rearrange my terms so that my constant terms are together. So I'm going to write my variable term 5y, and then minus 10 plus 30 equals 150. And now I'm going to combine those two constant terms together. So I'm going to bring 5y straight down. And when I add negative 10 and 30, that gives me positive 20. So it's going to say 5y plus 20 equals 150. And again, this right here is a two-step equation. So let's see if we can isolate the variable term 5y. There's a positive 20 that's on the same side as 5y. So I'm going to go ahead and subtract 20 on the left. And then I'm going to have to subtract 20 on the right as well to keep my equation balanced. On the left, 20 minus 20 is 0, leaving us with just 5y. And on the right, 150 minus 20 is 130. So now we have 5y equals 130. But again, we only want the value of 1y. So I'm going to have to divide 5y by 5 in order to get 1y. And so I'll have to do the same thing on the right-hand side, divide by 5. 5y divided by 5, as we said, is 1y. And if we do 130 divided by 5, we get an answer of 26. So we think that y is 26, but again, we'll check to make sure. The original equation was negative 10 plus 5y plus 30 equals 150. Now replace y with 26, negative 10 plus 5 times 26 plus 30 equals 150. And again, with order of operations, I'm going to have to multiply first. So I'm going to keep the negative 10, and then I'm going to do 5 times 26, which is 130. Bring down plus 30 equals 150. And now we'll do our addition. Negative 10 plus 130 is 120. And then finally, when I add 120 with 130, I get 150. So 150 equals 150, which checks. And I know that y has a value of 26. In our third example, notice that something is different in this problem compared to the previous two that we worked with. In example number 3, I see parentheses and a number multiplying the stuff that's in parentheses. Okay, so this equation, negative 4 multiplying in parentheses negative 2n plus 6, and then plus 2n equals 76, there are a series of steps that we're going to have to follow in order to figure out the value of n. Okay, since I have a number multiplying items that are in parentheses, step number 1, the first thing I'm going to have to do is distribute. I'm going to use the distributive property first. Okay, so the negative 4 is going to multiply both of the terms in parentheses. So I'm going to do negative 4 times negative 2n, and then minus 4, because that's a negative 4, times positive 6. And then I'm just going to bring the plus 2n down. The negative 4 is not multiplying the 2n at the end because it's not in parentheses. And then again, equals 76. So when we multiply here, if we do negative 4 times negative 2n, that's positive 8n. And then if we do negative 4 times 6, that's negative 24. So we'll have 8n minus 24. And then bring down the plus 2n equals 76. Okay, so there's our first step after we've distributed. Now this looks like what we were doing on the other side. Okay, step number 2, I'm going to reorder my terms if necessary. And in this example, I can tell that I do want to reorder my terms because I want to get my variable terms together. So I'm going to have 8n plus 2n minus 24 equals 76. Now that my similar terms are together, step number 3, I'm going to combine my similar terms. Combine similar terms. In this problem, I can see that I have two variable terms, 8n plus 2n. That's going to make 10n minus 24 equals 76. And this is our two-step equation. So step number 4 now, we are going to solve the two-step equation. So we have to try to figure out how are we going to isolate that variable term 10n. It's got a negative 24 on the same side, so I'm going to have to add 24 on the left, which means I'm going to also have to add 24 on the right. Bringing the equal sign straight down, negative 24 plus 24 on the left is 0, leaving you only with 10n on the left. And on the right, 76 plus 24 leaves you with 100. 10n equals 100. But now we want the value of 1n. Since it's 10n, I'm going to have to divide by 10 on the left, which means I'm going to have to divide by 10 on the right. 10n divided by 10 is 1n. And if you divide 100 by 10, you get a value of 10. So 10n equals 10. 1n equals 10. Now we're ready to do the last part of the problem, which is, of course, the check. We need to do our check now. So I'm going to move my problem down here where I can see it a little better. Okay, rewrite the original problem, which said negative 4 times, in parentheses, negative 2n plus 6, and then plus 2n equals 76. We think that n is 10. So I'm going to have -4, and then in parentheses, -2 times 10 plus 6, and then plus 2 times 10 equals 76. With order of operations, I have to do what's in the parentheses first. I see multiplying and addition, so I'm going to multiply first. So if I do -2 times 10, that's -20. All right, and I'm just bringing everything else down that I haven't used yet. Still inside of the parentheses now, I'm going to do -20 plus 6, which is -14. So this is -4 times -14 plus 2 times 10 equals 76. Now I'm going to do my multiplication. Okay, -4 times -14 is +56. 2 times 10 is 20 equals 76. And now the last thing I have to do is 56 plus 20, which is 76. 76 equals 76, which checks. And so I know that n had a value of 10. In question 2a, we're going to review how to distribute with a fraction. 2/3 is multiplying in parentheses 6n minus 9. So I'm going to have to multiply both terms inside of the parentheses by 2/3. So I'm going to first start by doing 2/3 times 6n, and I'm actually going to make that a fraction by putting it over 1. And then I'm going to write plus 2/3, because that 2/3 in front is a positive number, times -9, and again, I'm going to make that a fraction by putting it over 1. Now I'm going to do my multiplications, but before I multiply two fractions together, I'm going to try to simplify. Looking at the first multiplication problem, 2/3 times 6n over 1, I can see that the denominator 3 and the numerator of 6n have a common factor of 3. 3 goes into 3 once, and 3 goes into 6 twice. So now this says 2 over 1 times 2n over 1. 2 times 2n is 4n. And now if I do the same thing with the second multiplication problem, 2/3 times -9 over 1, the denominator 3 and the numerator -9 have a common factor of 3 again. 3 goes into 3 once, 3 goes into 9 3 times. So this is 2 over 1 times -3 over 1. 2 times -3 is -6. So this comes out to be the expression 4n minus 6. In example number 3, we have 2/3 multiplying in parentheses 12n minus 9 equals 42. Okay, we're going to solve this equation by using the distributive property. So I'm going to multiply 2/3 by each term in the parentheses. So I'm going to start by writing 2/3 times 12n over 1 plus 2/3 times -9 over 1. And the answer is 42, okay? And now if we go ahead and we do the multiplication, before I multiply, I'm going to simplify. 12 and 3 have a common factor of 3. 3 goes into 3 once and into 12 4 times. So it's 2 over 1 times 4n over 1. 2 times 4n is 8n. And now if I do 2/3 times -9 over 1, 3 and -9 have a common factor of 3. 3 goes into 3 once and into 9 3 times. So this is 2 over 1 times -3 over 1. 2 times -3 is -6. So 8n minus 6 equals 42 is our two-step equation. Now we're going to get the 8n all by itself. There's a -6 on the same side, so we're going to have to start by adding 6 on the left, which means we'll add 6 on the right. All right, on the left, -6 plus 6 is 0, leaving us with just 8n. And on the right, 42 plus 6 is 48. So 8n equals 48. But we want the value of just 1n. Since it says 8n, we're going to have to divide by 8 to make 1n, which means on the right, we'll also divide by 8. 8n divided by 8 is the 1n, and 48 divided by 8 is equal to 6. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do my check now. So I'm going to rewrite the original problem, which said 2/3, and then in parentheses 12n minus 9 equals 42. I'm going to replace n with 6, so I'm going to have 2/3 times 12 times 6 minus 9 equals 42. And in the parentheses, I have multiplication and subtraction, so I'll multiply first. 2/3 times 12 times 6 is 72 minus 9, and then equals 42. If you do 72 minus 9 in the parentheses, you get 63. So this is going to be 2/3 times 63, and I'm going to put that over 1, equals 42. And now when you multiply 2/3 by 63, 3 and 63 have a common factor of 3. 3 goes into 3 once, 3 goes into 63 21 times. So it's 2 over 1 times 21 over 1. 2 times 21 is 42. So 42 equals 42, and that checks. So I know that n had a value of 6. In example 5a, we're going to practice distributing with a decimal. We have 5/10 multiplying in the parentheses 4x minus 10. So I'm going to multiply both of the terms inside the parentheses by 5/10. So I'm going to start by doing 5/10 times 4x, and then plus 5/10 times negative 10. Pay attention to your signs. And now if you multiply, 5/10 times 4x gives you 2x. And then 5/10 times negative 10 is negative 5. So our new expression is going to say 2x minus 5. In example number 7, the equation says 8/10 times, in parentheses, 625 thousandths n plus 10, and then equals 14. So the first thing we're going to have to do here is use our distributive property and multiply 8/10 by each term inside of the parentheses. So we're going to start by doing 8/10 times the 625 thousandths n plus 8/10 times 10, and then again equals 14. Okay, so now we're going to use our calculators to do the multiplication. If you do 8/10 times 625 thousandths n, you're going to end up with 5/10 n. And if you do 8/10 times 10, that gives you positive 8. So 5/10 n plus 8 equals 14 is our equation. We've got to get 5/10 n all alone. There's a positive 8 on the same side, so we're going to subtract 8 on the left, which means we have to subtract 8 on the right. On the left, 8 minus 8 is 0, leaving you with the 5/10 n. And on the right, when you do 14 minus 8, you end up with 6. Okay, so we have 5/10 n equals 6, but I need to get 1 n. So I'm going to have to divide 5/10 n by 5/10 to get that 1 n. So I'm going to have to divide the right-hand side by 5/10 as well. And if you punch in your calculator, 6 divided by 5/10, you're going to get an answer of 12. N is equal to 12. Okay, I'll sneak my check in here. I'm going to first rewrite the problem. 8/10 times 625 thousandths n plus 10 equals 14. I'm going to replace n with 12. So we're going to have 8/10 times 625 thousandths times 12 plus 10 equals 14. In the parentheses, I'm going to do the multiplication first. 625 thousandths times 12 is going to be 7 and 5/10. So we're going to have 8/10 times, in parentheses, 7 and 5/10 plus 10 equals 14. And now in the parentheses, if you do the addition, 7.5 plus 10 is 17.5. So 8/10 times 17 and 5/10 equals 14. And finally, if you do the multiplication, 8/10 times 17 and 5/10, you will get 14. 14 equals 14. Whoops, 14. So that checks. And that means that n had a value of 12.